Hey sis.
Who, me? Who, me? Who, me?
Yes, you. Hello. Welcome back to the Hey Sis, Yes You podcast. I am your host, Jaleesa, and today we have a beautiful woman who is so fun, so full of life, so inspiring that I have had the privilege to get to know a little bit through the interwebs. Everybody, welcome Leah to the podcast. We're so glad you're here. I'm so excited to just chat with you more. You have such a fun life, okay? Such a fun presence. You are just so filled with joy. Like, I know when I open the Instagram app and your post is at the top, that is going to be a good scrolling session, okay?
Oh,
Welcome to the podcast. How are
thank
you
you.
doing
I'm so
today?
excited. I'm good. I've been so excited to talk to you. I listened to your last few episodes, and
Aw.
I'm always so encouraged by you listening. And I was like telling my friend, I was like, you gotta listen to this podcast. And then she
Aw.
invited me to come on. I'm so excited. So I'm excited to be a part of what you got going on here because
Aw.
you've got a gift, and I'm just excited.
Ah, thank you. That's so humbling. My cheeks hurt. I'm smiling so hard. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. Okay, well, go ahead and introduce yourself to the podcast.
Okay, my name is Leah. I am 37. Yeah, 37. Yeah, 37 years old. I am a wife and a mom of three young girls, and I am just kind of living in this season right now where I feel like literally everything is God's overflow. Like just living in this space of like he can do anything. You know, you
Wow.
don't put any borders around what it is that he has for you. Don't think it's too crazy. Don't think about what anybody has to say about it, or how crazy someone thinks it is. What God has for you is for you. So I am just like every day like overwhelmingly grateful for the life that my family is currently living.
Yeah.
So I live in Portugal.
Oh, I
uh,
know.
I like every time I say it, it just doesn't make any sense. And all the situations and the you know the stories around it and behind it and in front of it are all just breathed by God's goodness. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what I'm living in. You know, those are some of my titles, but I also am just a work in progress. Like
Mm.
honestly, you know, God is all the time working in me to kind of really hone in to what it is He has for me, and so I'm just praying that I can be obedient to that. But girl, I'm a little bit of everything, too much sometimes, but also just I mean, I think I'm so joyful because I'm always aware of how good He is. So it infuses joy into my life every day. Of course, there are struggles that my family has that I have, but I'll never not see His joy.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're just a reminder that joy is actually something that is in us and is not necessarily swayed by circumstances because joy is a fruit of the spirit, and it's so
Yeah.
evident that the spirit of God is in you because say it's like if you're not watching on YouTube, like her smile is everything. Like you're just so
Thanks.
bright, and I don't know, you're like a breath of fresh air all the time. I love that so much. Okay, so you said you live in Portugal. So for those of for the people who are under a rock and not following you on Instagram, like if you're not following her on Instagram, why are you even on Instagram? Okay, her Instagram is life. But why are you in Portugal? Are you from Portugal? Like, tell us a little bit of
Oh
that
no.
story.
Eu não falar português. Like I don't even speak Portuguese. Embarrassing. But no, so the story around it is basically my husband and I came with our kids in 2021 to visit, and we had some friends that were here. And they kind of were like, everybody's like moving here. You guys should think about moving here. And we're like, yeah, we're not moving to Portugal. Because we are really, really big travelers. It's what we do in our spare time. It's kind of always what me and my husband have done, not so much as children, but as adults and as a couple. It's kind
Hmm.
of what spared our travel life. And we were living in a season back home in Orlando. That's where we're from, where it was kind of just like a very American driven, thing where it's work and work and work and work and work. And my husband was driving to and from Tampa from Orlando, which is like with the traffic is about a 2 hour drive. He was doing that Monday through Thursday, coming home and coming back Monday through Thursday. Friday, he was working from home, but into the night. And on Fridays, I went to work as a nurse for 12 hours. Saturday, he was home, but also working in the mornings. And so I would go to work and have my 12-hour shift on Saturdays because I knew, we had childcare. And then on Sundays were our only day as a family. But I was serving in the morning at our church, and I wouldn't really see them until after church. It was like it just really wasn't conducive to the life we really wanted to be living as a family. And so we decided to take the show on the road, and we quit our jobs. And my husband was kind of like at a incredible height in his career, and we were living very comfortably, but it just wasn't what we wanted. And so we prayed a lot about it, and God was like, "Yeah, why not? Like
Yeah.
you with me, with me." You know what I'm saying? Like I got you. Like it's fine. And so he kind of opened all these doors and made it very clear that this path is something that was in his will for us. And so we decided to take a sabbatical, and we put our kids in like a private school here where they're learning both Portuguese and having some classes in English. And we said for a year, we're going to travel the world together and just do this life as a very close knit family. And it's been insane. It's been
Yeah.
insane. Like I still can't believe we're doing it, but we're winding down. We got about 2 more months left, and so we're just trying to like soak it all in before we got to come
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. It's so fun watching you guys. Like, I love it so much. And then seeing your girls, like, just have all of these experiences. One, just seeing like a black family do this is just huge. Like, it's a big deal. And then I've seen your little beautiful black baby girls, and they're having this like wealth of experience, and it's just so beautiful. And then to know that like you guys are doing it all together as a family, and you're so intentional about that. It's just so beautiful. I love it so much. And so I'm imagining people are going to hear this and be like, "Houseway, like, what was that move like for you when it comes to like having to have such faith, right? Like you said, you're very comfortable, and you're living what some people would deem the American dream. You have good jobs, you have a home, you're doing the dang thing. Then you took this big step of faith. How did you build up to that moment of just being able to trust God with like, we're going to let it go, and we're going to just, you use the word sabbatical. And I love that so much because I think that we are in hustle culture, okay? And you and I are both like in the Instagram world. And so we know like hustle culture is like the recipe. Like, you want to make this much money, you got to do this, that, and the third. But you're like, I'm gonna take a sabbatical. Wild it's for me to even think like, wow, like that's real. People still do that. How did you
yeah.
get to that point of like, one, just like really trusting in God, right? Taking a big step of faith, but then also like the wisdom to acknowledge that that was necessary for your family and not just keep grinding and hustling. How did you guys get to that point?
Man, I think individually and together as a married couple that God has, you look back and like, oh man, like if it wasn't for that, I don't know if we would have been able to do this, and if it wasn't for that, I don't know if we been able to do this. Like he has set this story up like only he could, right? So I look back and realize, so my husband, he decided when we were like married for maybe a year or two, you should be a travel nurse, like, and then we can work, like I can work remotely, and we didn't have any kids, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I should be a travel nurse. Like, you don't, this is like a job. What are you talking about? He said, well, I know that I could work remote. And so, maybe we should do this. And I was like, no, like there's a plan. Like you work at this place for this amount of years, and then
Yeah.
you move up, and then you like this is the way that this goes. And I'll never forget him saying to me, like, why do we have to live in a box? Like,
Yeah.
why do we have to do, why do we have to check all these boxes? Like that's if that's not what God has for us, why are we gonna box him in like that? And I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, yeah, you're right. And so I kind of decided, I mean, literally, like, you can't even do travel nursing until you've been a nurse for 2 years. I was a nurse for 22 months, and
Wow.
we left Orlando, you know, and it was like really at the pinnacle of like, you just now kind of know what you're doing, and then you're thrown into this environment where you have to learn on the fly. They give you 2 days of orientation, and you're in a new state in a hospital that you've never stepped foot in, and now you got to be a nurse after like one shift of them saying this is what a med room is. That's where you go,
Yeah.
and so there's been things that have happened that God has just made us trust him, because it was either that or we was going to like crawl in a hole, right, and cry.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, we had an assignment. I was on my last day of the assignment. We had nowhere, because with how travel nursing works is you get a new assignment maybe like 3 weeks a month before your current assignment ends, which usually the assignments are like 13 weeks. So by your last day of work, you have somewhere else to go because you're most likely going to be moving to another state. So it is literally the last day of this assignment. We were in LA, and we didn't know we were going next. And I was like, okay, well, are we gonna have to go home? Like, we're not ready to go home yet. And I took a late lunch that day, like 3 o'clock, which was so late for me. I was starving. I get into the lunchroom, like the break room, sit down to finally eat my food, and my phone rings. And it's the next hospital calling me to interview me about taking a new assignment.
Mm.
And the worry that I had leading up to that was like, oh my God, we don't have any, we have all our stuff, I don't have a job. Like, this is my last day on this assignment. What are we gonna do? Like, we have to be out of this apartment by da 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 da. And literally, God was like, why are you tripping? Like, I had you go to lunch late so you could take this call. So it was just like no
Hmm.
sweat, right?
Yeah.
So I remember just being like, wow, that was incredible. Like, he came through like exactly on time. And I've known God most of my life since I can remember. But there's just these things he kept doing for me to remind me that I got this, right?
Yeah.
So for this move, we moved. The hardest part has been being away from our families.
Yeah.
But prior to, we've never, let me just say this, we have never lived under one roof for more than 3 years as a married couple. We have been married
Same.
for this year, really, almost 14 years. And we have never
Wow.
been under one roof for longer than 3 years before
Wow.
it's time to move somewhere. And so we've done a lot of this hopping around, right? But we moved to Denver, and it was supposed to be a travel assignment. And God was like, nah, I think y'all need to stay. And I was like, that wasn't the plan. We're supposed to go to New York next. Like, I'm not, I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay here. I don't want to
Right.
stay in Denver. But my husband was given this amazing opportunity as a young Black man at the age of, he had to be like 35 to take on the responsibility of building a brand new like um like office basically for this national engineering firm. They
Wow.
wanted to have a presence in Denver, and they were like, you're the guy for the job. And we were like,
Wow.
what? Like, 35-year-old Black men don't get this opportunity? Like,
Right.
okay, I guess we have to stay. And God was so kind to me and let me come to my own conclusion of, okay, I'm okay to stay here, before TJ got the official, like, we need you to stay, right? Like, he
Yeah.
was so sweet to let me come to that before he was like, y'all gonna stay.
Yeah.
But we stayed for 4.5 years, and we had two more children because we had one when we went, expanded our family, and we did this thing without family, like,
Yeah.
like family around. And so when it came time to move to Portugal across the world, it wasn't like, oh, we can't do this. It was like, wow, I mean, he did that, and he did
Yep.
that, and he
Yep.
did this, and he did that over there. And all
Mm,
of these things and all of these ways he set us up to be like, you can trust me. And so it was
mm.
like a no-brainer. And we just got tattoos recently in Portuguese because I know what it says. It says "El torna mi corajosa," and it's he makes me brave. So
Mm.
when people are like, "Oh, y'all so brave to do that," I'm like, I mean, I got
Oh,
the
I
cheat code.
love
Like,
that.
like I
Yeah.
got the cheat code. He makes me brave. Like this is not
Yeah.
TJ. This is God being like, live life abundantly. That's what I'm giving
Hmm.
you. Take it.
I love that. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Okay, first of all, that tattoo is dope. I love that. I love all your tattoos. Every time you post a new tattoo, I'm obsessed. It's so
And
fun.
my
It's
dad is like,
like,
stop.
I know. Oh my gosh, I know. My dad is the same way. Like, I am grown, okay? Now, I love that. So, what I'm hearing you say is that you remember what the Lord has done,
Yeah.
and that like keeps you doing the next brave thing. And I think that's so important because remembering is like a gift. It feels like a spiritual gift almost to be able to
Yeah.
remember. I think it's so natural for us to remember trauma or bad things, things that didn't work out, and like this pessimistic human nature that we could have, but to be able to remember what the Lord has done and use that as fuel to like usher you into the next big thing is so huge. I love that so much. So when you think about your life and your story, what was it like in the times where you maybe didn't see God, maybe you didn't see Him come through in the ways that you were hoping or expecting, and how did you push through those moments?
Um, it's I will never ever ever forget being in this season of like I know God has this for me, right? Like so it should be easy because
Hmm.
God put this in my heart. The thing that reminds me of this is the fact that I had wanted to be a nurse since I was a child.
Mm.
Um, I think as a maybe a elementary school, middle schooler, I called it a baby doctor before I knew what a pediatrician was, right?
Aw.
As I got into middle school, high school, I realized the differences between what doctors do and what nurses do. And so all the time I'm going, okay, not a baby doctor, not a pediatrician, but a pediatric nurse. I want this kind of relationship with my patients. I want to be um, able to spend as much time with them as possible. So
Yeah.
this is what God has for me. And I have always felt that. And then I get to college and science is not super easy. And I'm like struggling, in my studies. And because high school came easy, but my study habits didn't match when it was time, to go to college. And I'm out here getting C's, and C's still make nurses. For
C's get
anybody who's listening,
degrees.
C's get degrees, and they make doggone good nurses.
You
Okay,
feel me?
um, listen. But I will never forget not getting into the nursing program initially um, at my university, and I was like, huh? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is for me. Like, this should be
Right.
cake. And then I get into a different program, and I fail my first semester.
Oh,
I
yeah.
fail my first semester as a nursing student. And I'm devastated because, of course, everyone is going, you should do something else, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm going, no. I mean, I
I
was told this
refuse.
from, I refuse. I was told this at my university when I didn't get into their main nursing program. It was, you should probably choose something else, your GPA. And I was like, the devil is a lie. Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
All of these times where people are trying to discourage me from what God has for me. And I just remember being like, no, no, that ain't it. Like if he gave it to me, it's going to be for me. I just got to figure out in what ways I need to pivot what I'm doing for this not to be oh, God is gonna do this for me. I ain't gotta do nothing, right? Like it doesn't work like
Yeah.
that. Like you're going to have to meet him half, like if not halfway, like a
Yes.
quarter of the way. You have to try.
Absolutely.
So I remember just I struggled through nursing school, and Me and my girl, I'll never forget her. Well, she's, of course, I'll never forget her. She's one of my friends. That was stupid. But I'll never forget. I'll never, if she listens to this, she's going to be like, girl, what? I'll never forget the interactions that we had and the times that we were praying together, because some of
Mm.
these girls would just ace these tests like it was nothing. And we would try to get into their study group and they would, make up some frivolous reason why, we couldn't be there. And we were like, okay, well, I guess it's just gonna be us two. And we prayed our way and we studied our way through this thing. And I'll never forget getting better grades than they did on this one test that like everybody,
Period.
girl. And I was like, and I I will never forget the experience that I had during that time and when it was time for me to find out that I passed my boards, because I had been checking every single day for, or like every, not even day, it was like every probably 15 minutes, because they post whether or not you have a Florida Board of Nursing or whatever state board of nursing license within 24 hours. Some states do this. So I
Wow.
knew after I took my test that I like people were going to be on there checking, right? I'm checking. And I'm getting a little anxious, of course, because I don't have any results. And TJ calls me, my husband, he was my fiance at the time, calls me and he's like, do you want me to just check? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, just check. He checks and he calls me and he says, did you do this on purpose? What were you talking about? He's like, you passed. And I like
Aw.
burst into tears, right? I get off the
Aw.
phone and I'm sitting in bed and I feel the fullness. I don't think I've ever felt it like that. This fullness of his like presence just going like, I got you.
Yeah.
Some there's some things that you might have to work through. It doesn't mean it's gonna be easy,
Yeah.
but I've always got you and I will never fail you. And it was just like
Mm.
just the most beautiful reminder of like there's some things that are going to happen that are going to be no's from him. They're going to be yeses, and they're going to be some. Not right now.
Yeah.
I need you to do some other stuff, or we need to
Yeah.
approach this in a different way. And so I have examples like that, more of those. But it's just, he's always come through. And so if there's something that's unanswered, it's either a no, we need to do something else. I have something else better for you.
Right.
It's a yes, or it's a not now.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good. And I think like I love when somebody shares a story that's not just like, I came, I saw, I conquered, but like, I came, I saw, I had to go through a little bit of the valley. I had to fight the good fight and I conquered, because I think that is so much more realistic. And also, like earlier, you said, like, what God has for you is for you. And then you now are also saying, like, but I also have to put in the work, right? And it's
Yeah.
that idea, like, that the scripture tells us that we co labor with Christ. And so I love like that your journey has been that of you like seeing this like vision, receiving this like vision from God, but then also like working with him to like bring that into reality. That's so beautiful. I love that. And also like how fun to be a travel nurse, have that experience with your husband, have your babies along the journey. Like that just all sounds so fun. I have to ask, where has been your favorite place that you lived?
Um, I mean, I maybe in the United States, I'd say probably Orange County, California. We loved it
Hey,
there.
West Coast is the best
Listen,
coast. You know, I'm from Southern Cali.
it was such a like. I love the laid back environment.
Yeah.
I loved how nice everyone was. It just wasn't like there's some places we've lived a lot of places, and some places you go to the grocery store like you came from the gym and they looking at you like what, you know and Orange County never gave those vibes. It was like, if you want to come bummish, like
Yeah.
it's fine, but
Yeah.
there's also places to go if you wanted to get dressed up, and it was beach life, and
Yeah.
I loved it. And then we loved Denver. I will say we
Beautiful.
spent so
Yeah.
many years there. We loved it there. We ended up becoming snowboarders, and and I fell in love with moose, and like it
Oh,
was
that's cute.
cool. It was cool, but when it came to raising our kids and stuff, there the diversity wasn't there for me,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
like, nah, we gotta
Yeah.
go. But we loved We loved it while we were there, and the people are kind to a like, what do you want from me? What's the catch?
Yeah.
Like, why are you being so nice? Like,
Right.
that was surprising because they were that nice and kind, and we are not used to that living coming from
Wow.
Florida. We're not used to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been hearing stories about Florida, okay?
Woo, listen, it's a
That is
different
so
world.
funny.
That's
Okay,
for
so
Portugal.
yeah, I'm like, okay, Portugal probably takes the cake. Like,
Yeah,
also
for
like
sure.
looking in your background, I'm like, oh my gosh, your house is so cute. Like, I'm
I
sure it's just
know.
been so
I didn't even
fun.
do this.
I know, that's
Yeah.
so fun. That's so fun. Okay, so I wanted to touch on, I know we talked a little bit about like what is something that like you really um would love to share with women that you feel like could be an encouragement to them based on your own experiences. And we talked a little bit about your experiences with unanswered prayers and how you kind of found more clarity in that, and really just maybe seeing the Lord more clearly through those experiences. So I would love for you to share a little bit of that.
Yes. I'm gonna actually read something. Um, so I have been, this is like my second time through the Bible. I'm reading with Tara Lee Cobble. She does the
Okay.
Bible recap, and I love it. And this is my second time through, and I am like, you know, every morning so excited to get up and read
Oh,
because
I love it.
there's been such, different and new details that I didn't pick up the last time, and stories that you didn't necessarily hear, the pastor preach when you were growing up. And I have been in the throes of an unanswered prayer, and I came to Judges recently, and I
Mm,
was like, you know what, I'm going to talk about this because this is like so. And Tara Lee Cobble says something that I quoted here because I just think it was really good. So unanswered prayers, sometimes they're a way for God to change your focus, a way for him to change your lens to what he wants you to look from, a
mm,
way to turn your gaze to him and other prayers that he's answering for you, a way to change the way that you pray that one unanswered prayer, the way that you change your view of him as your genie or your wish fulfiller, a way for him to teach you to let go of the reins and pass them to him, to
mm,
finally lay down what you envisioned for your life and instead let him do what you've asked him to do, which is direct your path, to get out of your own way and let him have his, a way to change the thing that you regard so highly into something that he himself had to bless you with in order for you to have it, not something that you worked so hard for. Maybe your relationship with it needs to change.
mm,
Maybe it gets in the way of your relationship with him. Maybe he needs for you to value, maybe he needs its value to change in your life. Maybe it's just not meant for you.
mm.
Acceptance, contentment, a new prayer.
Wow.
Um, and then what Tara Lee Cobble said recently was obedience doesn't always guarantee our desired outcome. Sometimes its purpose is to teach us faithfulness to God, not our desires.
Wow.
Um, and so, kind of what made me think about that was um, in Judges, where this Levite is married to his concubine, and they are traveling. He's going to win her back from her father. This is Judges 19. If anybody wants to read it, it is a read. And he gets her back, and they start to travel with her and his servant, and they get to somewhere where it is not Israelite territory, and he doesn't want to stop. So he keeps going, and he goes into Benjamite territory. And this familiar story of men coming to the door and wanting to sleep with the man that's in the house. The
Yeah.
guy that took them in, the Benjamite, is like, no, 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 we're not going to do this. Long story short, I'll let you read it because it's graphic. The wife ends up being murdered. He takes her back for the Bible, boy, dismembers her. He dismembers her, right? People who think the Bible is boring, I'm like, what are you reading?
No, it's
He just,
really like a soap opera
what?
sometimes.
It's a soap opera. And this one in particular, he dismembers her body and sends her to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he calls a meeting like, what are we going to do about this? This happened in Israelite territory. And so they all gather, except of course the Benjamites. And they're like, what are we going to do? Okay, God, are we going to go to war with the Benjamites? And he's like, yeah, I want you to start with Judah. Go and fight them. Benjamites kill off so many of them. They come back. They ask God again. Okay, you sure you want us to keep fighting them over there, our brothers? Yes, I want you to go back. I want you to fight them again. They go to fight them. Benjamites kill off a whole bunch of them again. They come back. They mourn. They sacrifice, and they go, God, like what? You're telling me you want me to do, like you want us to do this, and God goes, I want you to go back again, and this time I'm promising you victory. And they go back and they win against the Benjamites. And I was just like, how many times in our lives do we like, okay, it's not working out. Are you sure you want me to do this? And he's saying yes, right? But it doesn't work out. And you're like, I'm confused because I came to you and you're telling me to go back again. And so hearing what Tara Lee Cobble said about obedience teaching us faithfulness to God, right? And I'm just thinking like this unanswered prayer that I've had and that everybody probably has. It could be to your career. It could be to have a family. It could be to have one more child. There's so many things that people hold dear, like, okay, God, I'm just waiting here. Like, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah.
And I have realized from this one unanswered prayer that I have that I was not paying attention to literally all of the other ways that he was blessing me. Like I was like just so laser focused on like, okay, God, but this is, New Year's resolution. What do I want? This is what I want God to do for me, right?
Yeah.
Not so much what is God's will for me, but how can God answer this prayer for me? And I just got tired of like that same prayer and it being unanswered that I was like, oh, okay. Like I'm gonna have to approach this from a different way because I'm getting frustrated and I don't want to feel resentful. So Lord, you show me what kind of relationship I need to have with this unanswered prayer. And what I'm realizing is like what I'm living is not the unanswered prayer. Like this ain't it. And it doesn't make any sense because you're like, this is the biggest thing. Like this is encompassing so much of God's goodness, but I'm like not even seeing it because I'm focused on this unanswered prayer. And I have changed my relationship with this prayer, with this thing that I have been seeking, because if it doesn't happen, God is still good. Yeah. If it doesn't happen, God has still done all of this for my family. Yeah. And so I just wanted to be encouraging for people to like, you might have to check what your relationship is with it, and if it's taking you away from him, and if it's making him like this wish filler. Like I heard Kanye in an interview say he don't mess with Jesus because he, oh no, I don't mess with him no more because he didn't I felt like he didn't show up for me in this way. And I'm like, that is such entitlement. Yeah. And it's really sad because he's so good. And some of these things he keeps from us is on purpose because we don't need it. Or he withholds it for a while so that we know who gave it to us. Yeah. And like for you to just be like, I'll mess with him, like that's just so sad because he's so good and all of the other things, right? That you would take this one thing, well, he didn't do this for me, so I'm out. Yeah. And I just thought like what a sad relationship to have with him because sometimes you don't want what it is that you think you want. Yeah. And my friend that is just a genius, she's Dr. Proctor. She told me that she heard from her pastor that, everybody says, just, delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. And he preached it to them and kept saying the same thing over and over again. And people were like, what are you getting at? And what she ended up getting it from it was delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. He's going to give you what to desire.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
oh, like, oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of those moments, And
Yeah.
so he's teaching me that. He's been teaching me that in this unanswered prayer. And
Mm.
I'm actually more grateful for him not answering it because of how I've been able to pray about it and change my relationship to it.
Mm. That is so good. Hey, I'm listening to you and I'm like, I keep saying like, oh, this is my podcast is my love letter to women, but honestly, sis, this interview was for me. I'm just letting you know right now, like everything you're saying, I'm like, where's my pen and paper? Like I need to write this down. You have to send me that quote, please, because that's so
Well,
good. Um, man, that is so good, Leah. Like I think that I don't know that I've thought about it in that way before. Like, what is my relationship to this thing? What is my relationship to this request or to this desire? Um, I was having a conversation with my husband, and we've like recently made huge life changes in the last year. And we were like, things have been going pretty like rough, like in comparison to what we had hoped and prayed and worked so hard for. And it felt like one thing after another was just going wrong. And like, then we started experiencing loss and it was just like chaotic. And we were laying in bed one day and we were talking, and he was like, do you think if the Israelites knew that the Red Sea was the first stop, that they would have left Egypt willingly with Moses? And I was like, oh, absolutely not. Like it literally says in Exodus, like God didn't let them know what was coming because they wouldn't have been able to do it. They didn't have the grit for that, right? And he was like, do you think if we knew that this was going to go this way, that we would have left like my military career and, where we lived and all those things? And I was like, oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then he was like, what are the good things that, have happened? And we start talking about all these beautiful things that our decision has led us to. And he was like, isn't it so good that God doesn't let us know that the Red Sea is ahead? Because even though at some point he will part it, because that is who he is, right? That is who he is. The Israelites generations would have been enslaved if they would have known that the Red Sea was ahead, because they would have just not been able to trust that God was able to part a sea on their behalf. And what you're saying reminds me of that, of like these unanswered prayers or not yet answered prayers. Maybe they'll get answered one day, maybe they'll never get answered, but nonetheless, that could be our version of the Red Sea, right? And I love that you're saying change your relationship with that thing, because it helps me to think like, is this thing that I'm asking God of worth the amount of faith that it's going to take to possibly see it through, the Red Sea, the 40 years in the wilderness, the manna for the day. And so I started in that moment making my entire family say, like, what is the manna that we have received from God this day? And like what you talked about earlier in the episode, like it reminds us what God has done. And it is that, memory that keeps us going. And so now I'm about to take all the wisdom that you just dropped and uh, evaluate, like, what is my relationship to these things? Because it's so easy for us to be like, well, it's a good thing that I'm asking for, like why isn't it happening? Well, it's like a selfless thing that I'm asking for, or well, this is for the benefit of many, like why isn't God giving it to me? But yeah, it just makes you think like, how have I attached myself to
Yeah,
this thing, that this is now the marker for whether God is good or not?
that is it. That's it right there. And I think
Yeah.
too, like I don't want to be like the Israelites. I do not want to forget after
Mm-mm.
40 days, oh well, he ain't coming. Let's go ahead and make
Yep.
this calf.
Yes.
Like he didn't just feed us, okay, but I really want some meat. And
Yeah.
like and these really
Yeah.
ridiculous things that they didn't think that God could do after he showed them over and over and over and over and over
Yeah.
again. Like, all you gotta do is
It's okay, girl. I got a lot of kids. I'm surprised they're not barging in here yet.
oh my gosh, somebody at my door like a worker. And I'm like,
Oh no. It's okay.
hola, hola, no, go. Okay, here go people. Anyway, I feel like I I don't want to be um in a space where I'm not remembering, and just
Mm,
and it's taking, and it doesn't have to take 40 days. When people who struggle with this, like, God is going to provide from paycheck to paycheck, right? Like, it can be 2 weeks that you're forgetting how you paid your bills 2 weeks
yeah,
ago, right?
yeah,
I did that, right? I
yeah,
want to do better than the Israelites. Like, they
yeah,
were getting some pretty big signs.
yeah.
Like,
You feel me?
they
Like,
were getting,
man,
you only got to split the Red Sea one time for me to be like, all right, I think he's gonna take care of the rest.
you feel me? I'm like the whole sea party, y'all. The fish wasn't even in the middle. Like, y'all got to walk through.
I think we can get some quail. I think we can get some quail. Like, he just did that. So it's one of those things, and we, of course, we still do it because we're human, right?
Yeah.
But I never want to forget these things that he has continuously done. And even, man, let me tell you about some of the blessings, because when I say they've been huge.
Yeah.
Hola. Hold on.
No, you're good, sis.
Hola. Oh, sorry. Oh, the ceiling. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Okay. Um, okay. Sorry. Okay. Oh, okay, okay. Okay. Well, if we,
Hey,
I
you're
don't know
good.
what
You're
got
good.
this. Okay. So anyway, I don't even know where I was. But the point is, um, I don't want to forget. Oh, the blessings
Yeah.
that he's given. So, for instance, like, there's been some struggles here. It's not been all rainbows and sunshine. Like, I've had some family members, hospitalized while we've been here. There's been some times where I'm like almost having panic attacks. Like, I need to go home. Like, I need
Yeah.
to go home. Like, I need to get a flight. I need to go home. And there's been some situations where I'm like, I don't like, we can stay, right? But in some way, something has got to give. Like, this is too much. There's too much going on with my
Yeah.
family. But there's been humongous things that have happened. I had a nephew cured of sickle cell since I've been here. Like,
Wow.
cured of sickle cell since we've been here.
Wow.
And I mean, so it's just, there's so many things that, even though I feel like I may still be working on this, because I've asked God about this specific prayer so many times, my relationship to it has changed. But what I've seen in it is that if I say that his will is better for me, and I say that I always want to be in his will, I've got to accept that if he doesn't answer this, it is obviously in his will and it's better for me. So
Yeah.
if I don't get it, there are other things. And a lot of the times you don't see that until you're outside of your situation and you're going, oh, wow. Okay, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have had that as much as I desired it. The
Yeah.
fact that it didn't come, you know, I was able to pivot to this. I know
Mm.
so many stories of people personally to me who thought that they were on this path and something didn't work
Man.
out for them. Some didn't work out for them, and they end up, it's just some stuff like getting fired from your job, and
Yeah.
people are building their own companies, very successful companies, because they're like, well,
Yep.
I didn't have no choice. I had to do something else. Like,
Yep.
all of these pivots in life that God is going, not this door. I got a whole bunch of them over there
Yep.
that you're gonna want to open,
Right.
right?
Right.
You don't want this one. You don't want this one. Like, keep going down the hallway. Like, if that is what I want him to do for my life, then I have to accept that about this unanswered prayer. And if it happens, I'll be even more grateful for it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because he has shown me in which way I need to regard it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's
so
good.
yeah,
That's good. I love that. In which way you need to regard it. Ooh, that's okay. You dropping some bars, sis. Hold up. Some real quotables. You give me a lot of little snippets for the Instagram and TikTok world, okay? I love that. It's so good. And you are just speaking so much to my heart. And I know that there's so many people, like I can think of like almost daily, it feels like I'm having a conversation with like a woman or a relative, and they're like, this is just not what I thought it would be. Or this is just like so hard, or they're waiting on something and they're waiting on something. I feel like that is so common for so many people right now. And so I'm super just grateful for you sharing this wisdom and just this like message of God is good even still,
Mm,
because remember when he fill in the blank, I think like bringing up the Israelites is such a good like story. There's so many stories with the Israelites, but one thing that is common is when they started to really act up, it's kind of prefaced with like, and they forgot what God had done for their ancestors. Like even when we come to the point of like Exodus, it says like the generation like of Joseph and his peers died off, and this new generation, they forgot what God had done through Joseph and all of that, or the Egyptians forgot who Joseph was to them, and so they mistreated the Israelites. And so I think like what I'm just hearing so much in this is like remember, remember. In my last
yeah.
episode, it actually came out this morning, we talked about like the concept of Ebenezer and like setting
Mm,
up these stones of remembrance, these things that when God has been really good to you, or when you have seen a glimpse of a prayer answered, set up a stone, whatever that looks like, so that you
mm,
can look upon it and remember. And so I
yeah.
love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it has, if nobody else listens to this episode, you done bless my whole world. Okay. Like that is just so good. I needed that so much. And I know that this was a God
I'm so
ordained
happy.
conversation. So thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to hear a couple of things. What can we be looking for? Like, where can people find you? Do you have any fun things coming up? And then I would love for you to just share some advice for the women who are listening to this that are kind of sitting in the middle of hoping for something that they may have not yet received. So,
Well, lots of exciting things coming up. I feel like all things are exciting, even in my life right now, even if they are completely unknown to me, because they are.
yeah.
They are literally completely unknown to me. We
Mm.
are ending our sabbatical in Portugal in towards the end of June, and we come home to, you know, just I don't know. I don't know. We come home to. We got a house, but we have no cars. We have no furniture. My husband is starting his own business. I am gonna do something that God has for me. I don't know yet. But there's so much un unexpected things to come that I am making sure that I delight in these things, right?
Mm.
So because sometimes it's just fun, right? I
Yeah.
I guess it depends on your personality and what things are
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
actually exciting for you. Because me not knowing that doesn't give me angst.
I
Not
love
knowing
that
doesn't
though. That's
it doesn't give me
special.
angst. It probably used to, but it doesn't anymore. I think I've had enough excitement in my life with unknowns that now I can realize, okay, like this could be fun, God. I ain't got no expectations, so whatever you're gonna do is what you're gonna do.
That's a beautiful perspective. I love that.
It's you know, it's it can be daunting if you really try to worry about it,
Yeah.
but I got enough worrying today. You know what I'm saying?
Period.
I ain't got it for 2 months from now. I don't need it for 2 months from now.
I
I
love
got it
that.
today.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Instagram. Mrs. Hazley at Home is my name. I'm on TikTok too. I got to do a little bit better about posting there, but I promise I will. So that's where I am sharing kind of all the things. Okay, okay. Obrigada. That's where I'm sharing all the things that are happening with us. So, if you want to come see what I don't know what's going to happen, you can find out. We can find out together
I
what's going to
love
happen with my
it.
life.
That's exciting.
It is. And I think maybe just advice is like, you know, uh, maybe trying to understand why it is that God is wanting you to wait well.
Mm.
Because if you haven't learned that lesson yet, it'll keep coming up. it'll keep coming up. And I feel like once you have, I don't want to say conquered it, because we are still absolutely human. There are absolutely things that are going to come where
Yeah.
we, well, I ain't wait well this time, God.
Yeah.
Usually I do, but this one, you kind of threw me for a loop. But he can handle that, like
Yeah.
he can handle our loop. So, you know, understanding it and praying about it in a maybe in a different way. Like, what are you trying to teach me in this waiting?
Yeah.
um, it's really can be really valuable, and really take some anxiety off of you. Just okay, like I'm for whatever reason in this season, I'm having to learn to wait well, and
Yeah.
maybe you'll see it come through in another season where okay, I'm handling this so much better because of that time that I had to wait
Right.
well.
Right.
And so I nothing is wasted with him. Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
is wasted. And if you have that perspective and you know that in every single thing, in every single challenge that you have, in every single season that you have, there is something to take from it that will make you that much closer to him. Like, I'll take it. If it
That's
means
good.
I had someone I know who went through an awful, awful divorce. And she told me she would do it all over again if it meant the relationship she has now with Christ. And
Wow.
if you were present during this divorce, like that's kind of wild, right?
Wow. Yeah.
You're going like, but it was really bad. And she's going 100%. I would do it over again if I had the relationship I got with Jesus now.
Wow.
And if those are the kind of things that we can take from life, like that really sucked, but look how much better of a
Yeah.
position I am in with this father of mine that I know who
Mm.
loves me and will never forsake me. Like, bring it on.
That's so
And
good.
so, God is good, literally in all of the things. And, I think people get confused about what it is that he causes versus what he'll allow,
Mm.
because he's never going to cause harm. That's not who
Right.
he
It's not in
is.
his
That's not what
nature.
he does.
Yeah.
And I just it's just not in him. But if he can bend evil for his plans, he
Mm.
can take whatever it is that you got and bend it for his good and for
Yeah.
your good.
Yeah.
So um that's it. I'm sorry for all the interruptions, guys.
Oh my gosh, no, what?
Trying to like
I'll take all those interruptions for all these gems that you are dropping, okay? That was so
happening. Nobody
good.
was supposed to be in my house.
Sis, no, that's so good. I appreciate that so much. And I'm not one to be without words. I talk a lot, but I'm really just like soaking in everything that you shared because it's just so good to hear. It just gives a lot of hope. So thank you so much for sharing that hope and also just reminding us all to remember what the Lord has done. And even what you're saying right now is like I can just keep thinking of James, like count it all joy, brothers and sisters, when you go through trials of various kinds, because it produces fill in the blank. James says it produces steadfastness and endurance and all of those things. But that's like what you're explaining right now with your friend and what she went through with her divorce and with your own experiences and the ways that even if you had to wait for that lunch break phone call, God still came through in the final hour. And so, thank you so much for sharing that. I will absolutely link everywhere that you can find Leah on the interwebs, okay? And follow her because it is truly like your cup runneth over and it shows through your joy, your smile, your content. Like I can just see God all over you, like the spirit of God is truly in you. And it just is fun to be able to like bask in your overflow. It really is joy. And so I appreciate you so much, sis. You are so
You
loved. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And this has just blessed my life so much. I'm so excited for the people that tune in to hear this. And I really believe that it will help them walk away a little bit more hopeful with a little bit more joy. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, sis.
thank you, Jalissa.